Good day everyone. We are the group Team Yay and this is our presentation based on our research essay paper, Group Assessment Number 1 Midterm. Mr. A has his Estapa case and the case reached the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, he lost the case. As we all know, when a case reaches the Supreme Court, the same is published in every website discussing Philippine jurisprudence. Now, every time someone key in his name in the web search engines, the Estapa case is displayed as one of its results. Due to such, Mr. A suffered humiliation and embarrassment from people who chance upon such search result of his name. Because of this, he wants his name be removed from such websites and he therefore invokes his constitutional right to privacy.
Question number 1. Can a person request that his name be removed from such websites pertaining to essay decided cases as the same is a violation of his right to privacy? Why or why not? First of all, what is right to be forgotten? According to the Google Search Central 2022, the right to be forgotten is a common name for a right that was first established in May 2014 in the European Union as the result of a ruling by the European Court of Justice. The court found that European data protection law gives individuals the right to ask search engines like Google to delist certain results for queries related to a person's name. In deciding what to delist, search engines must consider if the information in question is inaccurate, inadequate, irrelevant, or excessive, and whether there is a public interest in the information remaining available in search results. Who can make a request to delist content under data protection laws? In general, data protection rules only apply to the processing of personal data relating to individuals. Most requests come directly from the person affected, but another person can make a request on someone else's behalf as long as that person can confirm that they are legally authorized to do so. When is the right to be forgotten applicable? Mink Aaron of 2021 stated that the right to erasure is applicable if the personal data at issue is inadequate, imprudent, irrelevant, or inaccurate for the purposes of data processing and access. The right to be forgotten strives to balance an individual's right to privacy with the public's interest in accessing such information. A person can request that their name be removed from websites that violates their right to privacy.
Number 2. Discuss the concept of identity thief, its impact to an individual or an organization. Give your recommendation and conclusion. According to Kagan, Julia, 2021, identity thief is the crime of obtaining the person or financial information of another person to use their identity to commit fraud, such as making unauthorized transaction or purchases. Identity theft is committed in many different ways and its victims are typically left with damage to their credit, finances, and reputation. There are various forms of identity theft, but the most common is financial. Identity theft occurs when someone steals your personal information such as your social security number, bank account number, and credit card information. Identity thieves increasingly use computer technology to obtain other people's personal information for identity fraud. To find such information, they may search the hard drives of stolen or discarded computers, hack into computers or computer networks, access computer-based public records, use information gathering malware to infect computers, browse social network sites, or use deceptive emails or text messages. Sir Ben Luty cited 10 of the most common ways identity thieves give hold of your data. First is data breaches. Second is unsecure browsing. Third is dark web marketplace. Fourth is malware activity. And fifth is credit card theft. Six is mail thief. 7 is phishing and spam attack. 8 is Wi-Fi hacking. 9 is mobile phone thief. And 10 is card skimming. If you wanted to be elaborated of these 10 common ways, we recommended reading our essay paper. There are still many ways on how identity thieves can get a hold your data, but this is just the 10 common ways according to Luty Ben 2019.
Now let's talk about the impacts of identity theft to a person or an organization. Johansson Allison Grace enumerated the four lasting effects of identity theft to a victim person. First is financial toll. Through account takeover, identity thieves can also take over your investment and other financial accounts, the impacts of which could affect your retirement, your mortgage, and your child's education. Legal fees could add to the financial impact. Second is emotional toll. Victims may experience anger, but after the initial shock, and other challenging and long term emotions may come into play. Victims may experience feelings of helplessness, disrupt sleeping, eating, and lead to depression and isolation. Third is physical toll. In its 2016 ITRC survey, 23% of identity theft victims surveyed feared for their physical safety. 39% experienced an inability to focus. 29% reported new physical illnesses such as body pain, sweating, and heart and stomach issues. 41% had sleep issues, and 10% couldn't go to work due to resulting physical issues. Fourth is social toll. Hackers could damage your reputation or put your job on the line by using your current accounts and even creating new, fraudulent accounts in which they post while pretending to be you. Our conclusion is this: robbers are everywhere. Even in the internet, criminals can still commit robbery, and even if there are security systems, some of them can still bypass and do unethical and immoral acts. Our recommendation is what Kagan Julia said about identity theft protection. She said that one way to protect ourselves from identity theft is to continually check the accuracy of personal documents and promptly deal with any discrepancies. There are several identity theft protection services that help people avoid and mitigate the effects of identity theft.
Number 3. What is due process and its aspects? According to Kenton Will, 2021, due process is a requirement that legal matters be resolved according to established rules and principles, and that individuals be treated fairly. Due process applies to both civil and criminal matters. In countries with developed legal systems, individuals expect that the rights enshrined in their constitutions will be applied to them fairly. This expectation of due process outlines the relationship individual expect to have with their local, state, and federal governments. Specifically, that the rights of the individual will not be violated. Due process requires that legal matters be resolved according to established rules and principles, and that individuals be treated fairly. Kenton Will stated that there are two types of due process. First is procedural due process. It requires that when the federal government acts in a way that denies a citizen of life, liberty, or property interest, the person must be given notice, the opportunity to be heard, and a decision by a neutral decision maker. Second is substantive due process. Substantive due process is a principle allowing courts to protect certain fundamental rights from government interference. Principally associated with one of the fundamental guarantees of the United States Constitution. Due process derives from early English common law and constitutional history. The first concrete expression of the due date process idea, embraced by Anglo-American law, appeared in the 39th article of Magna Carta, 1215, in the royal promise that no free man shall be taken or in prison or diseased, or exiled or in any way destroyed, except by the legal judgment of his peers or and by the law of the land. In subsequent English statutes, the references to the legal judgment of his peers and laws of the land are treated as substantially synonymous with due process of law.
According to the website called the Smokeball 2019, due process is basically a legal requirement that no citizen be deprived of their legal rights without properly application of the law. In other words, under the due process, a person cannot have their property seized or be put in jail without first going through the legal system to determine if they are guilty of the crime they being accused of, determining what punishment should be applied. Procedural due process is a concept that requires that a person be given notice and a chance to be heard when the state is taking action to deny them life, liberty, or property. There are three types of procedural due process, and they are civil procedural due process, criminal procedural due process, and substantive procedural due process. First, civil procedural due process. This concept asserts that a person's due process is violated and if a law or rule is fundamentally considered unfair by the values of the society. Second, criminal procedural due process may be used in a criminal procedural due process dealing with a criminal defendant's right to a fair trial and fair process. And last is substantive procedural due process. It restricts the power of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches to redefine due process and infringe upon the constitutional rights of people. Due process rights is basically the guarantee that a person has the right to the fair application of the law before they can be imprisoned, executed, or their property seized. This concept is responsible for all the procedure that guarantee a fair trial no matter who you are.